today we're gonna have a in-depth discussion about how to future-proof your data science career. And to have this discussion, I've invited Shailvi Wakhlu, who is the former head of data at Strava, and she has an extensive experience in industry. And myself, my name is Akshika. I'm currently working as a lead ML engineer at MainStreet Partners, London. I've had experience in the past at MIT and working with Google, and also working in academia as a postdoc. So yeah, I'll let Shailvi sort of introduce herself as well. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Akshika, for having me. So I'm based out of San Francisco. My name is Shailvi. I currently run my own consulting practice where I work with early stage companies as their fractional data executive. It's a super fun job. I've worked with some very interesting companies. But prior to that, as Akshika, as you mentioned, I was in a corporate role for 16 years. So my previous role was as the head of data at Strava. There I dealt with analytics, ML, and data engineering problems. Now, besides the data work streams, I also am a published author and of the book Self-Advocacy. And I get paid to speak on that topic, and I have a course on the same subject.
Awesome. Yeah, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll pick them as we go. And we'll have some Q&A time at the end as well. Just to kick it off, I think one of the questions I personally like to sort of know as well, Shailvi, what do you think about like how do you identify talent and what sort of factors go into when you hire someone as a data scientist or maybe to a senior role?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for context, I have done a lot of hiring in my career. At Strava, for example, it was a very small team when I started. And so I basically hired about 20, like more than 20 people in my department. So one thing that I think anybody who is looking for a job should keep in mind is that no hiring manager is looking for just one archetype. There isn't a hiring manager who wants 5 people who do the exact same thing. So a little bit of that sort of complementary skills in a team is something that most hiring managers look for. So there are sort of functional specific skills that, data scientists needs to have XYZ as a minimum threshold. But after that, it really depends on who else is on the team. How do those skills sort of complement each other? And what does the future state look like? Like, do we want to double down on this specific area of expertise? Are we worried about attrition in a certain area? So we want to have some skill that we think will scale with us as we grow. And so for that, like as what I have done in the past as a hiring manager is actually define set of rubrics, identify talent by like setting rubrics that, okay, this is the role, this is what we are looking for, and then how do we effectively test for that during the hiring process? Some part of it is obviously, the resume showcases your past experience that can be a proxy for those skills, but then during the hiring process, you actually try to get to those questions or those case studies that help you identify better whether people are actually good at the skills that they claim to be on their resume.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I was just curious, like, are there, like, looking at with your experience, are there specific sort of character traits or certain experiences that you think have contributed to like really good outcomes when you hire certain people? Like, are there any things like that have you seen in the past?
Yeah, I would say, I think for everybody, like the sort of technical skills, they have to meet a certain threshold, right? Like say you're hiring for something like you want us, you don't want to teach a senior analyst how to write SQL or Python code. Like, for example, you sort of expect that is something that they already have. But I think after that, the biggest skill that I feel makes the most difference, and this doesn't matter, like I think this is across the full stack of data science, whether you're on the engineering, ML, or analytics side, that skill of being able to tie your work to business results, being able to sort of focus on that, this project is more likely to earn my company money or make us more efficient. Like things like that, I think are like the distinguishing features. So even when I am interviewing people, when I hear candidates even ask better questions about the business, the product, what the problems are. I think those candidates sort of they distinguish themselves from others who are not focused on the final business value.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think at the end of the day, I mean, at the beginning, you look at the technical skills, and then I think most of the focus should be on business outcomes, like especially business impact. I think the more value you can add from whether models that you deploy, certain tools that you develop, I think if you can sort of improve the business outcome, I think that's really valuable. I think that's what the business look for at the end of the day, especially if you work in industry. So I think that sort of creates a good segue for us to discuss like what sort of criterias or sort of skills that you signals that you look for promotions. Like after a couple of years down the line, everybody wants to get promoted, and like they have certain sort of goals in their career. Like what sort of signals or things that data scientists should do to get promoted faster.
Yeah, this is a topic that I absolutely love because I think, again, all of us want opportunities to grow in our career. And I think in a lot of companies or with some hiring managers, the process can feel very opaque. They are not exactly sure like who gets promoted. So, you see the promotion time announcements and you're like, okay, why did that person get promoted versus somebody else? And I think one of the things that people can do to sort of take control of that themselves is actually, ask for that framework. Like some companies are transparent. They actually have a leveling guide. So, it's called either a leveling guide or a career ladders information. So some companies are very proactive about this. They actually publish something which looks like that, okay, a junior data scientist is expected to have these skills. And maybe they'll bucket it that, okay, these are the technical skills they're expected to have. These are the communication skills they're expected to have. This is sort of the influence skills they're expected to have. And then they sort of define that, okay, junior analyst, junior data scientist, senior data scientist, staff data scientist. And you kind of can see those skills on all of those different pieces, like in a matrix, go through that. So I think that is sort of step number one, that if your company or your team or your department does not have this information readily available, it is very much within, you should consider it that this is a normal thing to ask for, that, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to grow in my career path. Can you share a leveling guide with me? Because if it does not exist, I think you're in that great position to say, oh, it doesn't exist. Can I help build one? Like I have friends in other companies whom I can at least create a starting point. I think it does two things. Like one, it helps clarify that objective framework that is going to be used to evaluate your promotion readiness. And it also helps you take control. Like your manager now understands that that is something that you care about. You want to grow in your career. You want to make sure you are actually working on the specific things that will help you. So I think the general piece of advice is that like have more information, and then try to like make sure that you are having those regular conversations with your manager, that, hey, I'm working on these type of projects. Are those a good way for me to showcase next level skills? Can you give me feedback on things that I'm not doing right now, which would which I should be doing to be considered performing at that next level?
Yeah, those are really good points. I think just to reiterate on what you said, like especially good, like if you can use the one-on-one that you have with your manager to discuss this point and set certain goals, like so you can sort of reverse engineer from, let's say in 1 year's time you want to like get to senior or lead, like whatever you want to become. So you create these like mini goals and that you work with your sort of manager. I think that's really helpful, and it's really helpful for them to know as well, like your expectations, and they can sort of allocate certain projects for you so that you can achieve your goal from a promotion point of view. So I think other thing to look at is like career pitfalls. Like have you seen, Shailvi, like where people have done certain things that sort of stagnated their careers or like actually like, sort of self-sabotage their careers? Like are there any things that you've seen in the past?
Yeah, it's it's interesting. I've worked with a lot of different companies. I think the only thread common in all my roles is that I've worked with subscription businesses, so consumer or enterprise but like, recurring payments as a strategy for monetization. And one of the things that has been consistent, regardless of which company, what size I've worked on, is that data scientists are almost always in a position where they have, they have influence, but they don't have authority. Like that is just the structure, right? Like data scientists are asked to help create that monetization strategy or weigh in on that company long-term vision or plan, and say like, okay, should we invest here or here, or what are our consumers liking or not liking about our product? How should we think about our product roadmap? What should we prioritize as the next thing that we focus our efforts on? So data scientists weigh in on all of these pieces. They can weigh in on pieces that really showcase how a company can make an extra couple of $1 million a year, but they do not have authority. They do not control the roadmap. They do not control the revenue strategy. They do not control sales strategies or anything like that. They can just the best thing that they can do is tell the data stories that help convince those people who are executing in those areas, that convince them that this is the path. So I think to the sort of career pitfalls, I think the data scientists who focus on completing the project, getting the answer, but not really on making sure that action happens based on that answer. I think that is the thing, right? Because then you're doing a lot of great work, but nobody values your work. If people do not act on your suggestions, then they do not value your work. Then they think of it as a good to have. Like now they have this extra information, but they're not doing anything with it. So I think that is something that I feel data scientists should really focus on early. Like how do you speak in a way that convinces your audience to do something, to align with what you're saying? How do you understand their needs so that you can better tailor the message that keeps their motivation in mind and makes it more likely that they will act on what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I agree with you, Shailvi. I think one of the sort of advice I got during my PhD from my supervisor was like, you have to do like great work, but you also have to tell a damn good story, so that people know what you have done. Because it doesn't matter like if you done great work, everybody should know as well that you've done great work. I know maybe we might not be sort of inclined to do that, but I think that's a sort of mental switch you need to do. When you're in the corporate, you have to like tell a story like what you did and like how it impacted the results. So I think that's gonna let everyone know the value that you add to the company and the projects, etc. So I think that's really helpful. So I think the next topic I wanted to like ask from you is like something that's dear to you, Shailvi, self-advocacy. I think how would that be helpful to anyone working in industry, and also maybe give an introduction what self-advocacy means and how it can contribute to our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with sort of like just a very basic high-level definition. Self-advocacy is anything that you do that is in your best interest. So anything that you say or do that is designed to get the outcomes that you want for your career. And I think in this, I always sort of make the distinction that, sometimes it's very personal things like I want a raise, I want a promotion, I'm not enjoying my work environment and I want to change that. So, those are sort of like the very personal sort of things which oftentimes only impact you. But I think a lot of pieces that people struggle with at work are not personal, like they impact your whole team. So many data scientists have come up with such brilliant sort of topics of like, hey, why are we using this technology? Like there is better technologies on the market. Why are we stuck using these tools from 2005 that no longer are the best use of the company money, and it's not efficient? Like we should be doing better. Or they talk about processes. They say that just picking something out of a hat, but like the way we think of data quality is not something that scales. And this is something that it can cause individual pain. Like I have worked in so many jobs where I'm like, like the business wants these great analyses and they want these dashboards and they want this model that predicts something, but if the underlying quality of what we're basing it on is crap, you're not going to get anything great out of it. So it is something that personally like affects me, because I'm frustrated that my impact is not going to be as high, but it is something that the whole team worries about, right? So I think data scientists are I mean, everybody, but like, especially to the thing that the data scientists, when they advocate for things that are in the business's best interest, with the data quality example, everybody wins, right? Like if it is acted on, if you create that articulation of why this is something worth investing in, you will win because you'll have a better experience in your job. Your business will win because you'll, hopefully have like better decisions being made on cleaner data, and your customers will win. They will get a better product because you took the time to advocate for those quality issues and said that this is something that is going to give us an outsized return if we make an investment in it.
Yeah, totally agree. So I think I highly recommend everyone to like read Shailvi's book. It's a really good book to understand this concept and like how to apply that to sort of your work. And I think like something like sort of stems from that is sort of how do you sort of get cross-functional buy-in to your work. So I think I work in financial services. It's sometimes slightly difficult to sort of explain like concept behind machine learning and like the model development and also the infrastructure side of things. So especially working with people with expertise in financial sector, their domain knowledge they might not understand what you're working on. And so it's very important for you to sort of get everyone sort of buy-in. So how would you normally do that? Like, especially when you work with like multidisciplinary teams, Shailvi?
Yeah, I think, I think that's a great point, because data scientists rarely ever work with just one stakeholder. Like, I think we're in that unique position that I think everybody has, like, you can work with product, you can work with marketing, finance, sales, customer support. Like, there's so many different people who can benefit with the work that is produced by a data scientist. And I think there it really helps to sort of tailor your sort of, how you explain things, how you talk about stuff, how you talk about the value. I had a great manager, like, early on in my career, who always said, like, when you want someone to act on something, like, his format was like, put their face on the slide when you're talking about it, so that it's clear that they are the one who have to do something about this. And then when you tailor that message, it should be like, the product manager will benefit by doing this because of this other thing. So anyways, that's sort of one suggestion. But building cross-functional buy-in, I think, Laura's laughing because yes, trust me, like when people see their face on a slide, they really sit up and take notice. There's like, why is my face on a slide? What am I supposed to do here? It's a foolproof strategy, but deploy it with care. But I think the larger sort of thing about cross-functional buy-in is how do you make sure that, like, at the end of the day, you're one company, right? You are all trying to get to those single, like, top level KPIs that everybody's focused on. I think data scientists who can sort of map that equation of, like, this change here, this is how that equation maps up to the final KPI. Like, it can be a very small change, but like, this will impact this other thing and that will impact this other thing. Like, if you can show that entire equation mapping to the final KPI, people are way more likely to understand how doing something today results in a better outcome tomorrow. And I think that is something that really, like, gets people to take note in sort of cross-functional situations. But I always say that follow it up with sort of individual pitches to different departments, especially when you want multiple departments to come together and do something. Experimentation, for example, right? Like, experimentation is never done in isolation. You need engineering, product, marketing, like a bunch of people to be on and design. You need a bunch of people to be on board. So how do you make sure that each one of them can see how their part adds up to that final thing that you're pitching for in a manner that resonates with them?
Yeah, I think I agree with the A/B testing part. I also struggled with that initially. So what I did was I created like sort of a shared document that sort of explain why I'm doing this and what are the steps we have to do to like do the A/B test, and then what's the end goal. So that's sort of and shared with everybody who's like all the stakeholders. So anybody can come and sort of read this like this public documentation within the company. So everybody understand that. So that in that way, people sort of understood the value of A/B testing and why we need to do more. I think having this clear communication is really important. Another thing I'm trying to do is like my current role is try to have like a shared terminology, especially I think the words that we sort of take for granted in data science or computer science, it's not the same that other people mean. So, for example, word database could mean anything. It could be a file, it could be an Excel sheet, it could be actual database from a computer science point of view. So, how to define these things really well? Otherwise, these certain messages you pass across different teams can get misunderstood, and that leads to sort of bad outcomes in business. So, I think having like a common understanding of the terms that you use is really valuable. So yeah, those are some of my sort of points on this topic. So another thing I want to sort of check with you, Shailvi, is that the elephant in the room, generative AI. I think everybody's talking about it. Everybody's doing it. I don't know how to which impact, but what do you take on like sort of generative AI's impact on data science, like data scientists, and how we as data scientists should think about using generative AI and like how to utilize it to sort of improve our careers and also to do a better job at our day job. What's your views on that?
Yeah, no, great topic, because I feel like any conversation about data nowadays, it's almost incomplete unless you sort of like talk about, as you said, the elephant in the room with Gen AI. I think what is interesting, so I'm also sort of an angel investor. I invest in data companies, and what's very interesting is that sort of built by data for data is getting more common, that there are a lot more tools that are Gen AI tools that help you sort of, generate code that you would use for your work. I think definitely like some people like have those discussions like, are data scientists going to be relevant? And my belief is that absolutely. I think a lot of these tools, they solve sort of for a very narrow case, and it is still a long way from where everything that a data scientist does can be completely automated with a tool. Like there are going to be different things that people focus on, but if you think of these tools as co-pilots that help you do your current work faster, or maybe more error-free, or maybe in a more repeatable fashion, like I think that's a sort of good way to think about it. But the landscape has changed. I think it is helpful for data scientists to sort of start thinking about how to use Gen AI more effectively. A lot of times, like I work with a lot of small companies, and one of the most common things they ask me as a fractional executive is, where can I use Gen AI? Because for them, it's just it's almost a checkbox. Like they want to be able to say that I did something with this new innovation. And sometimes I'm like, what does your data even look like? Like, do you even have the volumes of data that would support it, or are you hoping to just plug in with some external tools that do something for you? But a lot of times it comes to like, do you have the volumes of data, and is it in a good enough quality where it'll give you some quality outcomes? And the answer to that is often no. So I do think that data scientists can hone in on those aspects, like how do you make the sort of inputs that would go into a lot of these solutions better, more sort of reliable, where you actually get something useful out at the other end. And that vision can also be sort of the prompt for a lot of stuff that you're pushing for right now, that we want to be able to, like, if our product, whatever the product is, this is an application that could be interesting, we want to get to it. So what do we need to do today that helps us align in that direction, where we are going at it in a more sort of intentional manner, and not just doing it for the sake of having a nice sort of marketing blurb that we put out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Shailvi, on this. So yeah, I think it's really important to like start from the business value itself, and then and see like where sort of generative AI could help. I mean, it's a lot of tools that could help your day-to-day work, and also from business point of view, there are like multiple applications of generative AI tools that you can use. Another thing just want to highlight is that like Gen AI sort of maybe automate certain things that you do day to day. So that sort of should prompt you to sort of like, okay, think beyond like what's after that. So because it could like automate certain tedious work that you might do, like data cleaning things, like certain things that you normally had took a lot of time. So I like not just in data science, like in many other fields. So I think like what's after that. So how would your sort of work sort of be like after sort of when these tedious tasks get automated? So I think that's a way to think about it. So how to use generative AI in your workday. So I think so. My philosophy is like I try to sort of learn in and out of these new tools, like the fundamentals, so I understand like how well from a first principles point of view, how well I can integrate these tools and algorithms to my workflow. So that sort of has helped me sort of improve my efficiency. So yeah, I think we are sort of like coming towards the end of our sort of session, but so we got a few more topics to discuss. So if the audience has certain questions, I think this is a good time to sort of like shoot them. So just type them in, so that will be so we can pick some of those questions as well. So I think the next question, shall we want to discuss is like, what's your take on working at big tech versus startups? I think like a Google or a Meta. With OpenAI, or whether you prefer to like work in a startup, like what are the pros and cons? So working in either of these companies.
Yeah, I think so. In my career, I've sort of gone back and forth a little bit. Like I worked with Salesforce, which is a super large company, went back to a startup. I used to work at Fitbit, which is now a part of Google. Again, like I've weaved in and out. And I think the differences between these sort of options is that one, what you work on can be very different. Like the scale of problems, like at Salesforce, like things that I was working on, it affected 400 million users at the end of the day. And then, like a smaller startup, like maybe max you have like a couple of tens of millions of users at best, but maybe not more than that. But like I think the biggest things for your sort of your personal growth perspective is how fast you grow can be very different in a big company versus a startup. And that is, I think, a personal preference. Like, do you want to build breadth of experience? You want to go deep in one area? How much autonomy do you like to have? That can be very different. Again, bigger companies, tend to have more structure. Some people like that structure, and some people want to be able to sort of explore on their own, which startups really facilitate. Very this thing. The other sort of one thing is that the value of your work can really vary. Like it can almost be tied to the startup's outcomes. So I worked with some startups that don't really have a name anymore. Like they were cool back in the day, now not so much. And so my like whatever I did there, it adds to me, but like that brand does absolutely nothing for me. And in some of the larger companies, like even if you were on sort of something very small, the company brand still sort of helps your career in the future. But stability can also be a different factor that, especially in this market where tech, at least in the Bay Area, is seeing a lot of churn, a lot of layoffs and things like that. I think it's very fair for people to decide like what is going to be more stable place for me to grow, and what, prioritizes those outcomes that I care about. So I think for people, like, I don't think there's one right answer, like which is better. I think it's a very personal question, that for some people, the excitement of a startup can outweigh sort of the stability of, a Mang company. And for other people, like they're like, what, I don't care about solving for like few million users. I want to go for the big thing that really teaches me scale. So I think it's very personal, but I think when people are intentional about thinking about it, they can choose the right option for them.
I agree with you, Shailvi. Yeah. I think it's a very personal choice. Yeah, I've seen both sides of the coin as well. So yeah, it's a very personal decision, depending on if you want to have structure, and like even you can't necessarily say the stability, like even with big tech these days with all the layoffs, etc. So maybe you might not have that, but yeah, the brand value that sort of brings in sort of helps you a lot in your career, even though like you might not necessarily work on something interesting. So there's a chance that you might not get in the right team that you want to work on. So yeah, that's really interesting topic. So yeah, I think that sort of wraps up the session. So I'll open up for questions. Like feel free to unmute yourself and just ask your questions, or otherwise feel free to type it in the chat. So yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Awesome. So I think there are no questions at the moment, but yeah, feel free to reach out, LinkedIn, ideally. And yeah, so if there's any questions, just reach out one of us on LinkedIn. So we are more than happy to answer your questions. And thanks a lot for taking the time to join the session. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for hosting, Akshika.
Yeah, thank you, Shailvi. All right.
Yeah.